If you want to build a company to grow, you need to put in place systems and controls and structure.
Today, my guest is Ricky Spiro, CEO of the Hilb Group. How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing great, Al. How are you?
Wow, great to see you. I'm very, very well. And I'm really excited to have you today and really excited for the conversation.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I thought we'd kick off on how we met. As you know, we were integral right from the beginning with Bob Hilb. In fact, my partner, Mike Fletcher, did the first deal before we even got together. You basically appeared around 2017-ish. One day, I get a phone call and it's Brent. And he says, I need you to meet somebody. I think they thought I was going to be really apprehensive about meeting someone new and what they were doing and what they were planning on doing in making a change in leadership. And listen, I think it was a fantastic change because I got to know you. We met. I remember the first conversation. I was very, very impressed, Ricky, right from the get-go. I knew you were very accomplished. I knew you were a serious player. I knew that you were a straight-up guy. And I got a really good feeling. We hit it off right from the get-go. It's been an unbelievable run, Ricky. I can't tell you how appreciative I've been to be involved with you, the Hilb Group, and the things we've been able to accomplish in the last 7, almost 8 years now.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. Two things I would like to say, if I can. One, I do want to recognize Bob Hilb. He did a great job building the company before I got there, and it's been a pleasure and a privilege to be the CEO since 2017. I also have a question for you, which is, I did listen to one of your other podcasts, and that your first meeting with that CEO was at a fancy steakhouse in Midtown Manhattan, and I got the Sheraton in Mahwah, New Jersey. Just saying.
I think people would love to hear your background, the things that you feel that are special or different about the Hilb Group, and then we could talk a little bit about my views around certain things and the marketplace a little bit today.
I spent the first 25 years of my career on Wall Street as an investment banker, mainly to the insurance industry and to other financial services companies. In 2008, I decided that I wanted to do something different. And one of my longtime clients, Chubb Insurance, was looking for a new CFO. And one thing led to another, and I joined as the CFO of Chubb in 2008, right in the middle of the financial crisis, which was an interesting time to become the CFO of a large publicly traded financial institution. We managed our own investment portfolio, which was part of my purview, and we had a $50 billion portfolio at the time as the markets were going up and down every second. So it was baptism by fire, but it was a great experience. I loved what I did. I had a great 8 or 9 years at Chubb. And then when the company got sold to Ace, I think it was 2016, the transaction closed. I stuck around for a few months to help with the transition. And then I actually retired for about 18 months or 2 years, trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. I had spent my entire life working for large companies, whether it be Citigroup or Chubb. And I really wanted to do something more entrepreneurial and try to build something. And when I got put in touch with Brent actually, we were not talking originally about the Hilb Group. Brent and I were talking about doing some other things together in the insurance world. One thing led to another, and I got the opportunity to come on board with Hilb. And it's been a great run and a great experience for me over the last 7 or 8 years. I love what I do. The company's gone from roughly $105 million in revenue when I got there to about $700 million today. So we've had significant growth. That's been through a series of acquisitions. We've done 190 acquisitions in the company's history, and about 155 of those since I got there. We have a terrific group of people. I think I have one of the best teams in the industry, from my senior leadership team all the way down. The way we run the business is we focus on our clients, we focus on our associates, we focus on having a strategy that we think will help us continue to grow. And what we're really trying to do is build a great company that's focused on what we refer to as sustainable growth. And what that means to me is I want to be able to grow this business no matter what the environment. We've proven that we can grow through M&A. That's great. In a higher interest rate environment, you need to be a little more selective on the M&A side. So we've also built an organic growth engine through investments in technology and systems and processes. I think we are one of, if not the most integrated of the private equity-backed brokers. We started on a process of going to a single AMS system, actually almost right after Carlyle came on board as our private equity partner in December of 2019. We are now roughly 100% of our agencies are on a single agency management system. We have invested in technology. We've invested in data. We believe data is critically important. We have a business analytics team. We have our own data lake. And so I think what we've done as a company is really transformed ourselves. When I got there, we were a pure aggregator. We had done a bunch of acquisitions to roll up the revenue, never really put them together. Everything was decentralized. And you'll remember this, but the day I started, my biggest shock was they had done 35 acquisitions or so to date, and I had 35 separate P&Ls and 35 direct reports to me. And that's no way to run a railroad, right? If you want to build a company to grow, you need to put in place processes and systems and controls and structure so that, as you continue to grow, whether it be organically or through acquisition, that you can support that growth. And I call it laying a foundation and put in place a scalable platform that will help support the growth. And that's really been what our strategy has been. And we've come a long way in 7 years. And I couldn't be more excited about where we sit today and where we're heading.
When all this private equity money really came in, and look, Alliant has been a poster child of it, the first ones, and then Assured Partners kind of followed. And I had Greg Williams a couple of weeks ago from Acrisure, and I really feel he was probably the king of the decentralized model, that he really took the industry and really catered to the entrepreneur more than anyone, and he used the equity the right way. So it's funny because you're absolutely right. Hilb was following the decentralized model. I do believe when you really came into the flow, I really think that you brought a different element to the Hilb Group, and you were kind of a little bit innovative because, as I said to Greg, Greg, you were the king of the decentralized model. Now it doesn't work. Okay? Everyone knows you're all growing through acquisition. They want to see it work. They want to see that you're integrating. They want to see that you're making the cross-sell work. They want the organic growth, not just that you're growing through acquisition. So I totally concur with you that I saw that from day one with you, that you were going to do things different. And not only did you add a lot of the technology and all that stuff, but, when Judd Elliott, another real good friend of mine, does a terrific job, Ryan Haberman, his deputy, those guys are awesome. They're real good friends. When they make their pitch to our clients, our sellers, there's so many things that the Hilb Group has done, that you've done, that are a little bit different with the in-house recruiting, the William and Mary program, all these different things that it and I know it, your industry has had a very tough time, not only recruiting talent, but young people to come in. And I think some of the things you've done have really established, getting more young people involved in the space and in what I say is the best kept secret of an industry in the country. You want to speak to that a little bit, Ricky?
Sure. And I agree with you. I think this industry is one of the best kept secrets out there, right? It's a great industry. It's resilient. It has recurring cash flows. And, it's a great way to make a living. Yeah. So we, as part of what we're doing as we try to build a great company, is we are very focused on our associates and their development. And making sure that not only do we help our existing associates become better at what they do and make sure they understand the pathway they have to grow in the organization, but also how do you attract talent from the outside? Because one of the real challenges we have as an industry in general is how do you perpetuate the business? We've done a number of different things. On the internal side, as you mentioned, we have internal recruiters. So we go out and we have people who are part of the Hilb Group who are going and finding us new employees at all levels, producer level all the way down. And that has worked really well because they understand our company, they understand our culture. And so that has been a real benefit. We've also invested in significantly in training internally. And so we have something called Hilb University, which is an online platform that allows all of our associates to, learn more about our systems, learn more about their job, and how do they progress and move on to the next level within the organization. It's actually a great asset that we have, and something that we created entirely from scratch internally. You also mentioned William & Mary. We have a leadership development program in conjunction with the Mason School of Business and the College of William & Mary. And each year we're on our fifth year of doing this. 15 to 20 of our best and brightest go through a 1-year training program with William & Mary. It's essentially a 1-year MBA program where they learn everything from marketing to accounting and finance, how to work in teams, and then those will be our future leaders as we move forward. And I think that's something that really does differentiate us, because we really believe that investing in our people is incredibly important. The last internal thing I would comment on, and then I'll talk external, is we also have a significant amount of training for our producers. We have an online and in-person producer development program. And so we're doing everything we can to, make our people as best equipped as possible to continue to grow the business. On the recruiting front, we do have our internal recruiters. We've actually recently expanded our summer internship programs, and we're also creating a new development program for recent college graduates where we're going to put them through, similar to, I came from, I mentioned earlier, Chubb. Chubb used to have the Chubb School, where when you joined as an underwriter, you went through this rigorous process to learn about underwriting and other aspects of insurance. But we're going to do the same thing for recent college graduates and put them through a year or more training program. And then at the end of that, we're going to see what they want to do and where we have needs, and put them in hopefully the right places where they can succeed. So we got a lot going on as it relates to training and recruiting. We think that we're doing it the right way. And over time, I think this will really help us as we continue to grow.
Well, I think you've acquired a lot of talent both ways, Ricky. And look, I'm very proud. I'm very proud to say we at Sica Fletcher, before you came, and certainly after, have really contributed a lot to some of the talent from the external side. I think some of your leaders clearly are people that we brought in. They, and they've identified themselves as leaders, and you have, and they've done such a great job. Right down the line, and some of your best sales talent has come from a lot of the transactions we've done. And you're also very proud that we were able to assist in both of the recaps. It's been really cool for me as I grew up in this business and helped folks like Hill to see the development and the things that you guys have done and how you're differentiating yourself. And I think the one thing, and you brought up a nice point before, the only thing that's really changed recently is with the interest rates up is people are more selective with their cash, as they should be. Because if you had 12 people look at a deal, you might have got 11 or 12 offers a couple of years ago when the interest rates were nothing. Now, if you get half, that's great, but we're even defining it further. But I think the thing that's interesting is I always felt that the Hilb Group was pretty selective regardless. I never felt that you called yourself an aggregator before. Yeah, maybe but everybody was an aggregator back then. That decentralized model was the hot player. Okay. But I never viewed you guys as ones that really were always, if it was breathing and it was available, you were buying it. I always viewed that you were selective and you made strategic acquisitions right up to this day. And I think it's helped you develop the regions, develop the leadership, the right people in the right places. You go where you want to go, you stay away where you want to stay away. And I think that's unique too, Ricky, because a lot of people just became opportunists.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Al. And that is a big part of our strategy. We've obviously been very successful at M&A, having done almost, over 190 acquisitions. You pointed it out, I think, earlier as well, but we view every acquisition as an acquisition of talent, which is really critically important. And some of our best leaders have come from our acquisitions, and many of them from deals that you have brought to us and we've done together. So I do appreciate that. We have always been selective in how we think about M&A. There are firms that, have done 100 plus deals in a year. I don't know how you can do 100 deals and incorporate them successfully into your business, integrate them, and get them all moving in the same direction. So we've always done it where we thought a more manageable number of deals was somewhere in the, call it 15 to 25 deals a year. More importantly, in geographies and businesses that are strategic to us. So, as our geographic footprint is up and down the East Coast and in the Midwest and Central. We are not in the West Coast of the U.S. or the Western part of the U.S. That's by design because we think we have enough opportunity in our current geographies, and we would rather do acquisitions around what we have so we can provide support and collaboration for the agencies we acquire than, buying a random business in Seattle, Washington and saying, oh, we'll come talk to you a couple of times a year. The strategy, we refer to it internally, is stay in our lane. We know what we're good at. We know what we're not good at. We know what's strategic for us, and we're not going to be all things to all people.
You don't have to be the biggest. You have to be the best at what you do. And even though 700 million is nothing to sneeze at, we've been very, very glad to participate in that. And I appreciate you saying, at this stage in my life, this is all about people. It's been about people for a long time. But as you get older, it's even more about people. So, I know what the Hilb Group wants. And obviously, that's been a product of the success we've had together. And I don't waste time from bringing you things or trying to convince you on things. Okay. There might be one or two things that are out of the box that I'll say, Ricky, I think this is good. But, you stay, close to the vest on that and stay to your strategy. And, I think it's really paid off. That's a good segue into, what's going on in the market right now, right? Because, it's cyclical. This is my 37th year in doing this. And I've seen the cycles, the stock market crash, the pandemic, the evolution of technology where it was going to take over this industry and there was no need for brokers anymore and all that good stuff. But I think it's been interesting now because I see a little bit of a cycle forming. Not so much, I would say within your peer groups, maybe the folks a little bit larger than you. Most recently, what's happened with Assured and now what's going to happen it appears with Risk Strategies, two really, really good companies. We were very, very close to Risk Strategies, and Mike Christian, great friend of mine. And we're seeing that, if you're not really prepared for your next step, okay, your next step might not necessarily be what you thought it was going to be when you set out to do this. And I just think that the market is changing a little. It seems like there's a little bit of a reset going on. It appears as much as the publics who are, dynamic, very large companies have been the big acquirers for years up until the last 11, 12 years with this super influx of private equity capital that everybody's benefited from. It's kind of coming back to them a little bit now because, it is hard to go public. When you get a certain size, you have to think about that. You have to really prepare for it. And it's even harder to stay private if you don't want to go public because there's so many investors that you need in order to do that. And look, Hub's a great company and, they were public, then they're private public. Now they're probably going to end up going back public. But I think, that's a company that's really been through it and knows how to prepare for it. But it seems to me that some of the others really got a little bit, surprised by where the market is today. How do you view the market, Ricky, yourself, overall? And how do you view the market for the Hilb Group?
Yeah, Al, you make a lot of good points. I would say to you a couple things. One thing I've learned in my 35 plus years in business is that life and business are not straight lines, right? So you got to be able to adapt and you got to be able to adjust. And, life comes at you pretty fast sometimes. And, I'll use a baseball analogy because I know you're a baseball guy, right? Occasionally you're going to get a curveball or two. Right. And I think the market has changed, right? We've seen some of the larger public brokers become more acquisitive. There's some people are thinking about going public. There's still, a lot of interest in the private equity market. But, 5 years ago, probably all of us private equity guys, the only thing we were thinking about is when's the next recap with another private equity partner. And now I think you need to think about all the different options. But you can't control it, right? Things will happen. What you can control is how you run your business and what you're doing. And what we're trying to do is keep our head down, position ourselves as best we can, do all the right things to make us as attractive as possible for whatever the next step is. I was a public company CFO at Chubb. I know what it's like to be public. I understand what that option looks like. I understand I was an investment banker doing M&A for 25 years. I know what all the options look like. The only thing I can control is what we do as a company. So we're continuing to execute on our strategy and continuing to grow the business, make the right investments. And then whenever we decide it's time to do the next, I think we'll be very well positioned. I also think that we are at a size of 700 million in revenue where we have a lot more options at our disposal than others, right? We're in the sweet spot. So we have a lot of optionality. And whenever that time comes, we'll be ready.
I think that's right. I think you have to prepare for optionality. You have to be prepared. And I agree with you 100%. It is so cyclical. It's almost take a day at a time, right? Because we don't control what's going on in the world. You don't control what's going on in the market. You don't control any of that. The bottom line here is I think you're smart in what you're doing, because the two things that are the most consistent no matter what you do is integration and organic growth. You have to be smart and be ready and know that you're ready for plan A, B, and C. And I think that you made the moves already right from the beginning that we're going in that direction. I think you're smart in thinking and the way you've done things to be able to, hit those goals and be able to have that optionality. And I agree, at your size, you still have that optionality. But then again, the world could shift. And as long as you're positioned, no matter what it is, you have everything in place, then you're usually on, in a good position. And I think you've done that, Ricky. I think you've put the Hilb Group in a very good position because of your expertise, your background. You're coming from a public company like Chubb. I mean, one of the premier carriers in the country. So it's been really interesting to watch all this. What's next for the Hilb Group on the horizon? Obviously, I'm not putting you on the spot to say, hey, when's the next recapitalization or what is it going to be? What do you think?
Private equity companies as well as I do, their typical hold periods are. I think what's probably happened over the last few years, given both the pandemic and the rise in interest rates and the higher cost of capital, I think hold periods may have extended a little bit. We recognize that liquidity and wealth creation is a big part of our model. We have, Carlyle owns, call it 2/3 of the business, and our associates own the rest. So we have more than 500 employee unit holders. So look, I know that liquidity is important, and at some point we will do something. I can't tell you, is it, in 6 months, a year, 2 years. But as we've already talked about, what I can control is making sure that we're doing all the right things in the company. We're doing all the right things for our clients, all the right things for our associates, and positioning ourselves as best we can for whatever the outcome is. And that is where my area of focus is. I don't know what the timetable is, but whenever it is, and whenever that my phone rings or, and I get the call that says it's time to do something, we'll be ready. We have lots of options in front of us, and we'll figure out what the best one is, both for all of our unit holders and shareholders, but also for our employees. I care deeply about our team. I've said it already. I'll say, I think we have one of the best, if not the best team in the industry. We are as successful as we are today because of them, more than me, obviously. I'm just one person. We have a great team, and we're going to make sure we do right by both those guys as well as our shareholders.
The equity piece is the piece that and private equity backed brokers with the stock is what changed this industry, because it went from, your industry is full of entrepreneurs, family businesses, the people that you're investing in. And, they were for many, many years, as I said before, were being purchased by large publics, large privates, and, kind of losing their identity, change. That was Greg Williams' big thing when he came in with Acrisure, is the least change, right? That decentralized model. But even though the decentralized model is still probably obsolete at this point, I still think that there's some characteristics that still apply as far as the mentality of the people that have joined you. And I always say the equity is only as good as the liquidity. And you're right, Ricky. I agree with 100% what you said. It's no longer, when it first started, you could set your watch on 5 years. Then it got so hot and the interest rates got so low that we were doing them in 2.5 to 3 years. Most of the ones that I have been involved in were about 4 years. But I do think the whole periods are longer. And what we have seen, obviously, is no longer do these private equities want to get out of the asset because it's too hard to find the next one. And what I tell all these private equities, and Ricky, I could sit here this morning and probably get, 5 or 6 new private equities wanting to contact me, or ones that I haven't talked to in a while, and I'm very respectful to all of them I talk to them. But what I say to them is, do you think all I have is these platforms grow on trees? And it's not just the size and scale of a business, it's really the leader. Do you have a guy that really you would back, okay, that could take this and be the next private equity backed broker? It's very difficult. So, these assets are very important. Someone like Carlyle probably, has a lot of respect for the Hilb Group. I would if I were them. And I know you have a lot of respect for Carlyle. So, we're seeing the fund-to-fund transactions. That might even be going away a little bit. But what you see is most people are wanting to stay in some way, shape, or form. And if you're still under that 300 million mark, getting a sponsor to ride side by side with you is common at this point. Once you get over that 300 million mark, that's when I think the optionality becomes a little bit different. And you really have to be prepared to all the options. And I think, like I said, Ricky, I think you're smart in what you're doing. But like everybody knows, everyone signed on. And your guys, Judd and Ryan do a fantastic job of pitching your equity, which you've been very protective of. Okay. You're very conscientious of that, which is smart because that's everything when you break it down. Because once that goes bad, you're in trouble. Okay. But they do a great job of making that pitch into my sellers and my clients of the equity and the success of the equity and the results of the equity. So, obviously everybody's sitting back, and sure, I put a bunch of people in there and I get the phone calls. What are Hilb going to do? What do you think they're doing? When are they going to do something? I said, I have no idea. I just hope I can continue to help them as I've done in the past. And I agree with you, Ricky. You got to be an opportunist, but it's a different ballgame now.
We will be able to bob and weave as needed, depending on what the environment looks like. You talk about the decentralized model. One of the things which I would point out is all the companies we've acquired, everyone's been an entrepreneur, right? So when you go to this fully integrated model, and how you maintain that entrepreneurial spirit is incredibly important. We're doing our best to do that as well, and make sure that, we don't want to lose that.
Well, you have to, as you get bigger, and I said this before, got more people to answer to.
Yep.
Okay. They're not all the same. They all have different agendas, and they all, kind of want to know what's going to happen and what's going to go on. And they just think it's like pushing a button, a lot of them, because to be quite honest with you, that's a big selling point. That's what's made these, what we call growth strategies, what they are, is these entrepreneurs continue to feel like entrepreneurs. I never have felt that Hilb has become corporate in any way, shape, or form. Although, as you get bigger, there are certain expense, synergies and things that have to be addressed. And that's just, the way it is. When you're smaller, you can get away with not having to worry about those things. But that's part of the integration. And you have to be smart. But I can't agree with you more. I mean, almost everything you said here today, I agree with. And you're a smart guy, Ricky. You and I have been doing this together now for 7-8 years. Tremendous success. I just feel like the Hilb Group is one that I think is going to be a survivor amongst the group. I'm not saying others won't, but I do think it's going to be harder for the newbies or the smaller ones to get to the certain levels that Hilb has and others that have, reached the 700 million, the billion mark, and so on and so forth. I think it's going to be harder, and I think it's going to be a different ball game for a lot of different people. And I think, like I said, I said it once, I say it twice, I say it 3 times. I think you're positioned very well, and I give you a tremendous amount of credit, and your team. You do have an exceptional team, and a lot of people that I'm very fond of myself, because there were clients of mine that are some of your better leaders and better
Thank you.
producers,
Yeah,
etc.
we have a great team. We have a great partner. Carlyle's been awesome over the last 5+ years. So
Right.
I'm pretty lucky.
No, you listen. You've done real well. You seem very happy. Private equities have a mind of their own. They know what they want to accomplish, and it's always the exit, right? That's what they're striving for, to get that score for their investors. It's very hard to win the trust of the private equity to where they have the trust in you to make decisions. Okay. Some people are not at that point. Some people never get to that point. I feel like the trust that you built with Carlyle is evident, and the trust they have in you and you have in them has created a great partnership. And, Carlyle's a powerhouse. They're a fantastic private equity, one of the best that's ever touched the space, and will continue to be. But I think that's a big thing because I deal with so many of them. We've invested in several of them. Some of them don't have the same opportunity. They do not have the same opportunity to, make decisions for a better sense of the word, on their own.
Okay.
And I think you must feel that you've crossed that line. I think.
Thank
At
you.
least that's what I see, Ricky. Definitely.
Great. Thank you very much.
You've answered all my questions. I think you were awesome. This was fantastic. I really enjoyed doing it.
Thank you very much, Al. I appreciate all that you and your team have done with us as well.
All opinions expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and are not necessarily those of Sica Fletcher. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as professional advice. Sica Fletcher employees and clients may have positions in the firms discussed in this podcast. Any information provided is subject to change and does not constitute an offer to purchase or sell any financial product. Sica Fletcher LLC does not underwrite securities, nor advise on, nor affect transactions in securities for the account of others. For more information about your unique situation, please contact Sica Fletcher or visit us at www.sicafletcher.com.